Well, well, what have I stumbled upon? I was just cruising along, enjoying my day. And what do I find myself stumbling upon? Somebody that made a Dead by Daylight concept of Five Nights at Freddy's. But not only did they do that, they went above and beyond. However the fuck you pronounce that, Rareth Links. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. 65.8k subscribers. Out of that amount of subscribers, half of which like the concept. So, not bad. 50% approval rate. Not bad at all. There's a spotlight trailer, all of that. There's the link if you want to do that, etc., etc. It caught my eye, so I figured, why not jump aboard the creation train and, well, do what I do best. Reviews. Um, there's the character info and all of that. I mean, there's a main menu and a whole bunch of other things that you can sort of see there. I do recommend going to the particular link. I'll list the link in chat right now. There's the link. If you want to look at this yourself, I do recommend that you do check it out. They seem to have put in a lot of work into that. You have the symbols. Looks like somebody pulling a curtain back. This looks like maybe a skull with a birthday hat on it, and this is like a chest with a hand coming out of it. Anyway, the character info is the attraction. Now, I have done this before in the creation forum. Somebody has literally copied and pasted most of this concept into that, and I just kind of glossed over it. But then, you know, to actually run into the original of what that person tried to post is just interesting, you know? I looked at the other one, I might as well look at the original. Power is Phantom Trespasser, 4.6 meters per second, 32 meters tall killer. 3 regular perks. I'm not going to actually play the video and react to it like most people do because I don't like stealing content. But I will skip through to see things like this, you know, the meat of it. Power 1, Backstage Horrors. Even with the curtains called, stage fright sets in. Whenever a survivor sees your aura, they scream and have their own aura revealed to you for 4 seconds. They also suffer from the oblivious status effect for 30 seconds. Backstage Horror has a cooldown of 60 seconds. Now, it's only specifically when a survivor sees your aura. So they have to be either running a perk, like the reverse of Bitter Murmur for the survivors. I don't ever remember that shit. Or they'll have to be running a key or something similar to that in order to proc that particular effect. Backstage Horror isn't very strong when it comes down to that. Because even if, let's say, how do I explain this and make it sensible? So essentially, if you're over to the side completing a generator, for example, you finish the generator, and completing the generator allows you to see the killer's aura. You'll scream and get the oblivious status effect. However, you are still able to see the killer's aura. So if that killer looks your particular direction and starts walking towards you from wherever they are on the map, you have reactionary time to do whatever, you know, you need to get done. But the odds of that happening is extremely low. I mean, the killer would already have to be in your vicinity and not already chasing another person in order to get an activation here. So backstage horrors, I mean, like I said, every killer has a meh perk. This might be their meh perk. You're not gonna get much from that. I mean, like object of obsession or something like that, if somebody manages to run that, or if they're running a key that shows killer's presence. But now that's a bad example too, because object of obsession triggers every 30 seconds, allowing you to see each other. So there's no point in running this perk with that because you already have the aura reading. Um, and it's any time that the survivor sees your aura. So there's not really a lot of different perks that actually allows that to happen. Yeah, it's really, there's not a lot of situations. It's very niche. I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head because I know there's at least like three that I should be able to list, but no. And because that perk is so niche, it's kind of like, you know, why? Why include something that, unless his power works into that. But I mean, still, they have to see your aura. Again, they have to see your aura for this to happen. So once they see your aura and see where you are, and they scream like any other effect, like Iron Maiden or anything like that, and they scream, then that's the end of it. If the killer starts walking over to them, they're already on alert, and they can either evade, they can hide, they can do a large number of things to ensure that they don't get caught. And if the killer's on the other side of the map, it doesn't matter. If you complete a gen while he's chasing somebody else, the perk's wasted. I would recommend with this particular perk, you add some sort of passive to where the perk always is giving you some sort of small advantage. And then when the perk triggers, you actually increase the effects of this because this is one of those low percent activation perks. Because keep in mind, if you're using like the reverse bitter murmur or whatever it is, or if you're using some way to give your squad mates the killer's aura and all of that, and let's say everybody on the map screams at once, and all of that for 4 seconds and all of that, and you're able to see them and everything else. 4 seconds isn't a lot of time to go into action. It's the same as like barbecue and chili. It lets you know where they are and where you can head to. Sadako has, I think it's Sadako's perk. It's not the artist's perk. I'm pretty sure it's Sadako's perk. Some killer has a perk that I think it's Sadako's. When you unhook a survivor from a score chalk, you see the auras of all survivors. That's a very strong perk because, I mean, you're getting activations off of it and you're getting, locations of every survivor on the map. If you look quick enough and take in the knowledge and you have good, vigilance and things like that, and you pay attention to detail, you can see, hey, these survivors on generators, this survivor's running around not doing shit, or those survivors are healing, this survivor's on this gen, etc., etc. This particular perk is reliant on the survivor actually proccing or reading on the killer. And that is hard as shit to do on its own. And also, perks like Kindred, for example, you get no effect off of it. Because the aura reading and all of that that happens for other survivors isn't triggered by them seeing your aura. It's triggered by the person that has Kindred, for example. So the person who has the Kindred that's triggering the aura reading, you'll see their aura, but you're standing next to them or you're walking away. You can already see, what's going on in that specific situation. Which is, it's just odd. And if you do want to take it the opposite direction or the opposite way, and you make it to where one survivor's perk can negatively affect other survivors, you have to be very, very careful on what you're doing. Because, I mean, another survivor running Kindred and forcing me to get that aura read on you, me looking and then screaming and getting the oblivious status effect, you know, is kind of BS. And behavior strictly tries to avoid situations where another person's perk can negatively affect your particular experience. So we try to avoid things like that. But I mean, if you do want to keep it that way, that is an activation, but you got to keep in mind, which I mean, it has a hefty cooldown. I would definitely decrease that to about 20 seconds. So if you do happen to run into a survivor that has Kindred or something like that, you can get a proc like every 20 seconds and keep location. That makes that perk more than worthwhile to just counter Kindred or any other small ore reading and things like that. But again, you have to find a survivor that's actually running Kindred. Generally, you'll just have, you know, like new people playing, running Kindred, because, well, it's not really good for the higher ranked play. So, I mean, it's kind of good for getting the plebes and all of that out of the way, or just having fun and making, you know, that specific type of build. But good luck actually having something where, you know, a survivor running a perk that shows killer's aura. Extremely hard to do. So I would definitely recommend decreasing this cooldown. 60 seconds is kind of ridiculous for only 4 seconds worth of war reading in a situation to where, you know, because essentially what you have here is, let's say Kindred, for example. Survivor's hook time is 2 minutes. The first 60 seconds, you'll get 1 activation. And then, well, you'll get an activation right at the end as that person's dying. So it kind of gives you a barbecue and chili at the end, and then you can see where people are with the first activation. If you're fine with such little power off of a perk, I mean, it is what it is, but, you know, having a cooldown of, you know, half that time, you would get 2 activations at the beginning, and then towards the end, you would get another activation, then as the person's dying, you would get an activation. So you can be more inclined to go look for survivors and pressure particular generators while somebody's hooked, if nobody saves them, of course. So you're going to have to pick your hooks and everything, you know, carefully. And it'll give you like a cutoff point. If you hook somebody in basement, and keep in mind that this isn't off of every hook. This is only if they're running Kindred or something like that. Keep that in mind. And everybody screams because they can see your aura and all of that. You can see who's the closest to the hook, and you can make a plan on who do you think, you know, is actually going to go for said, you know, unhook. And if 20, 30 seconds later, another activation happens because they can see your ore, you just walk by the hook again and activate Kindred again, you can get an updated almost radar ping and keep applying pressure. Now, basement, you know, camping Bubba is going to love that shit because he can easily swoop up and pick anything else or anybody else up. But again, if the killer's camping basement and using these Kindred activations, you don't want to be pushing that particular survivor anyway. You want to be doing gens. That survivor kisses their ass goodbye and they use their hang time, and you guys push out as much gens as possible. Hurting the killer and not allowing him to get that rank. I mean, he'll probably still get a safety pip because it is a sacrifice in the chase that he got from that. Plus, after that person sacrifices, you know, there's still going to be a little bit of game left. But still, it's going to be hard for them to, you know, pip up and keep ranking up unless you do the snowball effect thing and go for that hook or unhook and end up going down. Then somebody else goes and they go down, and it's just a a whole thing that's happened, a big ass ordeal that shouldn't have been an ordeal. I mean, long story short, backstage horror needs a buff. It's just that simple. It needs to be buffed. Um. Ah. I'll go back to that. Um. Backstage horrors. I missed the perk. No, that's right. Grim Celebration, which is the middle perk. Anything can be cause for celebration, especially if you can get away with it all. Well, if you get away with it all. Looking a survivor grants you the undetectable status effect for 6 seconds. The duration is extended by an additional 1.52 seconds for each unique survivor hooked by your hands this trial. So you can go anywhere from 6 to 14 seconds of undetectable status effect. So this killer is going to be heavily influenced by its power and add-ons. The perks honestly don't mean anything for this particular killer. I don't know what the power is. I don't know the add-ons or anything special like that. But just looking at the perks first, these are extremely weak perks. I mean, Ghostface, for example, that is really the only one I could really bring to light in this particular situation. You go undetectable, and if somebody looks at you, you go out, but obviously that's not relevant to this particular situation. But if you're a ghost face, and let's say you never get pulled out of stealth, it has a timer on it that lasts for 15 seconds, heck, even 20 seconds. That's not really doing much for you on this particular perk. One, you're going to have to run some sort of ore reading perk or something like that, like barbecue and chili, discordant, something like that, to know your, pain resonance would work, eruption. You need to run some sort of perk like that to know what generator you're going to target with this limited time that you have on detectable. It's not a lot, and these perks aren't really that impressive. You could have given the spring trap. And if it is like, spring trap, heavy ass fucking animatronic, part, part, I want to say part human, part machine, but you know what I'm talking about. Springtrap. He got spring locked in the suit and all of that. Everybody knows what Springtrap is. So, for the sake of everything, I'm going to say a human body spring locked into a heavy ass couple of ton suit, As he's running around and doing all of that, he's going to be loud like Nemesis. I don't know if any of you have ever went against the Nemesis that has the undetectable status effect, but you can hear him running and approaching you. Just because he ain't got a terror radius, you can still hear the boom, 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 because Nemesis is heavy footed as fuck. So, I mean, the sound that he's going to make is going to be an issue. Obviously, he's an animatronic, and he already has lore and everything, associated with him. He's loud as fuck. He loves to talk and say things like that. He's loud. He weighs tons. He has human excrement and everything else hanging out of him and inside of him. He also has open machinery, things like that. So anywhere he goes, it doesn't matter if you're undetectable or not. He's still going to make noise that people are going to hear when he's approaching. Now, hopefully, his power somehow negates that in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, that undetectable, it works about the same it does on Nemesis, and you can hear the clomps and footsteps and all of that as he's running up to you. Also, the undetectable status effect, you're going to want a longer chance of that because after you hook somebody, let's say he's completely silent and we go away from the Five Nights at Freddy's lore completely, and he's completely silent when he's walking up on you. Once you find somebody or head into a direction to where you're making an ambush on a particular person and you start that particular pursuit, this perk is no longer useful to you. Or if you've hooked all the survivors, you get a whole 15 seconds. That perk no longer becomes useful to you. And you gotta think that, the first time you hook a survivor, you're gonna have 8 seconds to get to another gen that has other survivors on it. That's definitely gonna wear off by the time you get to that. Even if we do 5 times 8 seconds, that's 40 meters that you can move. 40 meters. That's all you got. You got 40 meters to get to a particular generator, the first hook. As you hook more and more survivors, which you have to go out of your way finding more and more and different unique survivors. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not. And going out of your way and getting multiple hooks on different survivors, which AKA is extending the game because you would really like to delete a survivor instead of hooking every survivor one time. You would really like to pressure in and get rid of a survivor. That little extra time you spent relieving them of pressure because you're spreading hooks evenly, you're not getting any type of reward for it. So these perks are way too generous. They need to be buffed to actually be useful for this particular spring trap. Now, again, I haven't seen the power, I haven't seen any add ons or anything like that. I'm going off just perks alone. They are extremely weak and need to be a lot stronger. Now, I'm going to mute audio and I'm going to pop up an image. I'm going to find this next perk real quick and I will be back. Gotcha. There we go. And then we unblock image. The last thing is Cruel Machinations. Activates for 60 seconds after hooking a survivor. Manually damaging a generator calls upon the entity to block that generator for as long as Cruel Machinations is active. Cruel Machinations has a cooldown of 20 seconds. How come the strongest perk that you have has the least amount of a cooldown? That's weird. You know what I'm saying? All the other perks we got or went through had a 60-second cooldown, things like that, and they didn't really do much for you. But the one that allows you to block a generator for up to 60 seconds after hooking a survivor, it's not even a unique survivor, just a survivor. It works like pop, except for it just locks that generator out for 60 seconds. As opposed to regressing or anything like that. Only has a 20-second cooldown on it. It also, well, I'll go back. Um, Actually, that's the end of it, so I guess I might as well say what I'm going to say. When I say it works like pop, I assume that 60 seconds starts as soon as you hook a survivor. It does not state anywhere, like, that the 60 seconds starts after you kick the generator. And if that is the case, you should definitely list that And you should also put a time limit on activation of it, like Pop has. After you hook a survivor, a timer starts for X amount of time to use Pop or Cruel Machinations, and if you kick or activate the perk in that time, you get a 60-second block. So again, I assume that 60 seconds start as you get hooked. And if it doesn't, then I guess I can do both ways. If the timer starts as soon as you get that hook, then, well, one, you're going to want to run this perk with Devour of Hope, because you're literally going to be hooking a survivor and then leaving to immediately find a gen that has any progress on it. So it stacks well with that, and you gotta essentially walk past any survivor going for any type of rescue, because you're on a time limit on trying to activate this particular perk. So if you hook a survivor and another survivor walks up and immediately unhooks, you need to make that conscious decision. Do you technically gain 60 seconds by tunneling that survivor? Do you play nice and go after the new survivor to try to increment your other perks? Or do you say, fuck it, let them heal, do whatever needs to be done? You run away, find a gen that has progress on it, and then lock that gen. So it is heavily punishable and heavily relies on you leaving that survivor alone once they get hooked. So that's why I say Devour Hope would run very good with that particular perk. This perk is shit with Ruin. Absolutely positively dog shit with Ruin, because you cannot kick generators or anything like that. So if you run this perk, yes, you gain 60 seconds of a survivor not being able to touch a specific gen, but you're not decreasing any type of progress or anything like that. It's kind of like Corrupt Intervention, but a baby version that only blocks one generator and only lasts for a minute. Survivors go, dang, that generator is blocked, but guess what? It's not regressing. So if I have a lot of progress on that particular generator, and I know that it's going to be down, it's almost finished, and I know the killer's going to come over and bonk that generator, then I'm just going to put more time in another generator. Me and a friend or something is going to finish a generator in 44 seconds or something like that, because there's two of you. Once that generator gets done, you walk over to the previous generator, and bada bing, bada boom, you hit that particular generator and finish it. Even running, pain resonance and pop and all the other stuff, you can only knock it down so much. And it's not going to continue to regress after like pop or something takes effect, because this perk's probably going to override it because it blocks it. Remember that blocking a generator doesn't cause it to regress. It just freezes it where it's at for that 60 seconds. Now, after that 60 seconds, pop will come into effect and start to regress that particular generator if nobody else goes back to it. But I mean, survivors are going to know, hey, I need to check on that generator. So, it's going to be a bad day for you, Scoobyheimer. Extremely powerful. Especially if you can do it like right before a 3-gen situation. You can block off one gen and then pressure survivors on the other two. And any time that you can knock a survivor down, you can get that hook, go over to the gen, and immediately block that shit off. Again, if you're using pain resonance or any other type of perk like that, or pop that blops the generator down, you can stall for a decent amount of time before survivors overwhelm you. Again, I don't know the power add-ons, things like that at this moment, so I can't really talk fully on it, but we'll have that type of understanding. We pop this back up, and I'm going to mute audio again. And we're just going to get to where the power is shown, like so. If I full screen that, is that gonna fuck? Oh, I can't check what it looks like if I full screen it though. That's the issue. If I do it like that, if I full screen this, will this break? Yes, it breaks. Alright, well, that's all I need to know. We'll just make it small, boy. Alright, Phantom Trespasser. See what this power does. Press and hold the power button to enter Trespasser mode. Press and hold the power button again to emerge. As you emerge from Trespasser mode, you unleash an intense screech alerting all survivors in your presence. Entering Trespasser mode. Ooh, that's small. 2.5 seconds. Base emerge duration, I think that's 1.5 seconds. Base emerge movement speed, 40%. Just off the bat, you started talking about something and then you kind of got off track. Because I see that there's nothing left under this that explains anything else farther. I'd assume maybe there's some extra stuffs at the end, but I'm not in control of this. But you started off good. Press and hold the power button to enter Trespasser mode. From there, or at least below that, or somewhere after this, you should explain what Trespasser mode does. Not say that you can enter it and then you can exit it and what exiting does. What does it do when you're in the mode? What's it look like? What do you gain? What does it do? What's the purpose of it? You know, you should go into detail explaining, what's going on. Now, keeping it short and sweet like this, I like this because it's telling you, the main information that you need. But I can't go in and, change anything or do anything like that, There's nothing really there. I'm not clicking on a link. There's links if you want them. But there's nothing here or anything here that I can scroll through or look, and there's nothing here in this description that explains what Trespasser mode is. So that's missing from the entire equation. I know that it's a mode that you can enter, and then it says press it again to emerge. Where are you emerging from? Are you going underground? Are you going into like a spirit realm and coming back? Are you going to a shadow coming back? Are you going into like a special suit mode where things change and then you come back? Like, what exactly is happening? I assume there's gameplay, yeah. But there's no description here. This would be fine if, it was actually going to be incorporated into Dead by Daylight. It would be fine looking like that because you would find out as you played. But this isn't. This hasn't been approved by behavior. This hasn't been implemented by behavior. So you got to keep in mind, even though you're trying to copy what behavior is doing and keep with everything that's going on, if somebody, serious from the behavior team wants to check out all of the information, they're going to need this extra stuff listed for them so they know what the hell, they're supposed to be designing. Now, I mean, obviously there's gameplay and all of that, but looking at gameplay and trying to essentially adapt this idea, change it around and make it, compatible with the actual game, things like that is completely different. Because if they adapt this, they're definitely going to change the way your killer's played. They're going to change the perks up, the timings, and all of that to make it, worthwhile and actually, sell. They're going to have to get permission from, all the or the license owners and things like that. Like it's going to be a whole ring to go around. So even if they do say, hey, we want to use your concept and all of that, and you say fine, and even if you let it go for free, they're still going to change things. They're not just going to copy paste your files. One, that's a rude thing to do when it comes to coding and implementing and things like that. Even though you would like them to, anybody that goes into coding knows it's shameful to have codes spoon fed to you or dropped in front of you. You should always try to code things on your own, or you're defeating the whole purpose of, being a coder. You don't ever want to use somebody else's code. So they would look at what's going on, and then they would write their own code for the game, improving on things that, your particular code might have issues with, or incompatibilities with the server code, or something like that. There's something that, once it goes live in public test beta and all of that, or even before that when they're testing to make sure it works, there's no telling once they implement it how much shit's gonna break. You have coding and all of that for the particular engine, but you don't have the codes and all of that for the particular game, more specifically, server side. If the server needs to, incorporate specific events and things like that, and those files are missing from your particular killer, then there's going to be issues. So even if you do design everything perfectly, there's still going to be code that you're unaware of that you're not going to have in your particular killer that they're going to have to add in and change and all of that anyway. Again, the perks and all of that aren't like super, super, super good. I don't even think I talked about the last perk that much. At least I don't remember what the hell I said. But anyway, let's throw all of that in the trash for now. Get back on the main topic of what I was looking at. Phantom Trespasser needs a description on what it does. I like all the extra information. I've been saying this for a long time. You got a nice title. Anything that's relevant, he has here. Then all the extra stuff he italicized and put under it. It's something that simple that a lot of people that are in the creation forum are missing. This very simple thing that he did here makes it so easy to read. I fucking love it. So easy to read. Then you have your name, your primary power, what it does, tertiary effects, and all of that that are specific to the power but aren't, very much needed. Then, right up beneath it, it says more stuff. All the things that I'm asking for, there you go. This is what Trespasser Mode does. Now, if you're new to my reviews, I list everything as I see them. So, my opinion's going to change from start to the end. I give you a review on things as I read them. I read it part from part from part. If you do everything correctly from start to finish, all the questions and concerns that I complain about and things like that as I'm going in, like it missing the description for Trespasser Mode, will be answered. Right underneath it, and a explanation of Trespasser Modes right there. That's the only thing I complained about, is there wasn't anything saying what Trespasser Mode does. There it is. So now we're at a 100%, completion thing throughout all of that. And that's how I do my review, so you know what I'm looking for. And I'm not just reading through, like most people. They'll read this entire thing, and then they'll give you your final thoughts on whatever, they see is wrong, and then they're out. I want to take everything apart piece for piece and say, hey, this is missing that. If this exists somewhere else, and it's readily available, like right next to it, then it answers my question and I can incorporate that into the final review. However, if I ask this question and this information's, way down towards the bottom where I have to scroll to find out where it is, then scroll back up, that's an issue that you can cover right then and there that somebody that just reads all the way through this and then gives their final thoughts is going to miss, unless they're very vigilant about what they do. Now, moving on, I asked what Trespasser Mode did, and it needed to be listed and all of that. Here it is. While in Trespasser Mode, you are an incomprehensible phantom, unable to attack, and very recognizable from 16 meters or further away. You pulled that shit from Sadako and Wraith. Well, in this case, it'd be Wraith, because I don't think Sadako was out at that time. Or farther away, you also produce a non-directional phantom radius of 40 meters. Why say non-directional? I know spirit and all of that has a directional noise, but that's only specific to spirit. So something like that, I mean, I guess I'm glad you incorporated it, but it's irrelevant. I'm going to assume that, you know, it's just a regular tear radius. Well, a phantom radius, as they say, of 40 meters. I wouldn't think that it's directional. Just interested in why you put that. I mean, it's good that you did, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of irrelevant. But this is kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about other people's reviews. This is a very good template. You got okay. I had a text message, unimportant. You got the power clearly emboldened and all of that to show where it is. I can see exactly what all of this is. Underneath, it has a basic description of everything that the power does. Underneath that, it has kind of the other irrelevant information that should be listed because, like I said, it's not included into the game. And then underneath that, it explains everything that you actually, you know, would need to know. This is beautiful. This is a very good template of something that you would be looking for. You can tell a lot of time has been put into this concept based off that. Looks very good, very professional and all of that. Now, as I've stated before, it doesn't matter how good and professional and what kind of pictures and things you have. If you're missing something, it's going to be picked up. Like the presence of perks. You got one decent perk, and then the other two are just kind of meh, hanging out there and needs to get some sort of, you know, flavor thrown into it. I don't think I went over the third perk because I don't remember what the hell I said. No, that's backstage horror. I'm trying not to go too far. Ah, yeah. The ability to block the generator for 60 seconds. Yes. I remember now. It doesn't stack well with other meta perks, things like that, but it's good for, you know, select few situations. So if you can just lock a complete generator down, you can force survivors easily into a 3-gen situation, or push towards that and then lock one of the 3-gens down and continue to pressure and do things that way. I mean, locking down a gen's good, you know, corrupt intervention, things like that. However, it's a double-sided blade as to where no other effects are going to happen while that generator's locked down. And then I went over the immediate unhooks and how it stacks with Devour and all of that good, etc., etc. I remember. Cruel Machinations lasting for a whole minute is fine, especially when the other perks aren't really that great. It doesn't really affect anything. I mean, Ruin doesn't work with it. Pop should work with it if you're lucky. I don't know how behavior would incorporate it, but you'd assume Pop would work with it, but not ruin. You're also blocking the particular generator, so once the regresses, it'll get blocked, and then nothing will happen until it gets unfrozen or unlocked or unblocked or whatever words you want to use. Machinations ain't that bad of a perk, but keep in mind that you're losing a perk slot to gain the ability to lock down a generator after every hook. The only thing that I'd say you should add to this is you should take the script off of one of these and say it's only activated on each unique survivor hook, so you can only get 4 activations of this. Then you can just take out the cooldown. Yeah, take out the cooldown, add that into each unique hook. You get an activation. Leave the cooldown. Because you know, if it's a snowball effect or some shit like that, you will lose token activations and all of that. You leave the cooldown. It's actually good. It's a good fail safe to have. So it can't be exploited in some way, shape, or form. But definitely make it to where, I mean, you don't need any more than, well, it'd be 3. Well, I mean, if you do all 4 different survivors, it'd be 4 activations. You don't need any more slowing power than 4 minutes in a particular game. It gets ridiculous over that. Because, I mean, if you take that particular perk and you put it on a killer that can get, you know, fairly quick downs and all of that, then you're just going to literally just be going to a gen, blocking a gen, then immediately chasing a survivor that's at that gen, downing that survivor, hooking them, going over to another gen, locking that, going, you know, chasing whatever survivors at that gen, downing them, hooking them, going over to the next gen, locking that gen down. And if you're efficient at what you're doing, you could potentially leave 2 gens locked down at any given time. If you're getting these back-to-back downs. There's 7 generators in a lobby, so I mean, survivors still have a lot of pressure. And at the end of the day, you're only putting pressure on 2 gens tops. Unless you're like a god tier player or using a god tier killer with god tier add-ons. 2 generators tops is what you should have locked down at any given time. So, it's a good perk. 20 seconds, it is what it is and all of that, but definitely leave that to unique survivors. Because you could literally hook a survivor, walk over to a gen, kick it, go back and tunnel said survivor if they haven't gotten that survivor down, or if you hook them by a generator that they were pressuring. So I mean, like Iron Grass Agitation or something like that, or a backpack build would work good with this, because you can just carry that particular survivor over to a hook nearest to the next generator, lock that bitch down, camp ever so slightly, and then leave. So by the time they unhook that survivor, you can just retunnel, rehook that particular survivor, and then go off to another generator that has progress and knock that shit down at that point. And keep trying to get multiple activations if you want to try to, you know, meta scumbag that way through. It's a good perk if you know where the survivors are and things like that. But it's also a bad perk because at the end of the day, you're only slowing down 1 generator at a time. But definitely limit that, because that can scale out of control against, I'm not going to say dumb survivors, but ignorant survivors that aren't knowledgeable of the game and how to play it. Excuse me. Let's see. Special attack, Phantom Assault. So as we have now, you can go into Trespasser mode where you're, let's just say, essentially invisible until you become 16 meters of a particular survivor. So you're essentially Wraith at that point. Special attack that comes off of this Wraith-like thing is Phantom Assault. As you finish emerging, you may press the attack button. If you do, lunge forward with sudden speed and a powerful swing to brutally slay any victim in your path, putting the survivor into the dying state. If you hit a drop pallet or breakable wall, they instantly break. The same applies to generators, causing them to instantly regress upon impact. Problem. Immersion takes 1.5 seconds. At the end of your immersion, you unleash an intense screech. So are you saying that I'm able to bypass that particular screech effect by immediately pressing the attack button after emerging and using this charge attack? Or is this intense screech only lasting 1.5 seconds? Because that's instantaneous. You're looking at like one and it's done. You would get a. That's it. Just. That's the end of it. So it's either going to be a very small, like 1.5 second, screech that happens. Or you're going to be able to bypass the particular screech because you're going into some sort of assault. Now, a couple of the issues that you have here is after immediately emerging, well, as stated here, immediately emerging, you can press the attack button after you emerge, and you will do a forward lunge with a sudden speed and a powerful swing. If this is what I'm thinking as it is, as soon as you finish emerging, you have to immediately press the attack button, that's fine. But the question I have is, what if you miss? This is a fully commit action where you are essentially doing like a super lunge attack that'll down survivors. If you miss, there should be some sort of consequence. Some sort of, additional stun. So let's say it takes, I don't know, I was going to say 1.5 seconds, but that's with the perk. Let's say it takes 3 to 5 seconds if you miss. Well, I mean, if you miss regularly, however long the Demigorgon's recovery time is, or, like 3 seconds or some bullshit like that. Then if you hit, it should have like a Legion recovery time. It should be like a 5 second to 6 second type of recovery time, if not longer, as you're putting everything you have into this particular lunge. If you miss, you should be punished for an additional stun time. And if you hit, there should be a cooldown time where all your servos and all of that shit have to essentially cool off and recover from that huge ass lunge that you just made. Unless you're Foxy, none of the other animatronics, to my knowledge, can make insanely, fast actions like that. Especially not Springtrap, who still has a sort of like a humanality about him. Although rotten to the core, still has that humanality to him. When you see Springtrap and things like that, he's not necessarily, the fastest. You know what I'm saying? So just going off of that, for him to pick up that big boy speed and to be able to put a survivor immediately into dying state, definitely needs to have either a miss cooldown or some sort of charge up that he does before he unleashes that particular attack to make it fair for survivors. Again, you're essentially just incorporating a chainsaw effect and the rape's invisibility. If we break this down into simplistic things, 2.5 seconds to get into it, 1.5 seconds to get out of it. While you're emerging, your speed's reduced to 40% of your speed. I mean, it's got the race invisibility added into it. It's got the sprint of speed, but it's a deadly sprint of speed like a chainsaw. You lunge forward, I assume it's going to be like a chainsaw and it's not going to be controllable. So, like high sensitivity ain't going to be able to net you the hit that easy. It's got to be somewhat lined up, like a Demigorgon's leap attack. But I mean, that's essentially what this is if we break it down. Rates and invisibility, Hillbilly's Chainsaw Rush. It has right about the same amount of time for, wind up time and all of that, and the speed, slow down, etc., etc. It breaks pallets, unbreakable walls, etc., etc. So, I mean, you can throw in Demi or Demo, you can throw in Hillbilly Chainsaw, and you can throw in Wraith Invisibility or Sadico Invisibility now, is essentially what it comes down to with this particular Phantom Assault. It does, however, work on generators. So, I mean, having it to where you can hit a breakable wall pallet or just straight up charge a generator is extremely good, and another reason why it should have some sort of cooldown on successful hit and cooldown on misses. Um, I mean, there's not really anything wrong with it. The only thing I wished is you gave me a distance and how far you can actually lunge, but I assume that'll be in the gameplay. So that's really the only thing that I would like is a distance and on how far this lunge goes and if it's controllable, which I would heavily lean that it shouldn't be controllable. But, who knows? And then special ability, Desolate Hope. Press the active ability button while in Trespasser Mode to reveal agony trails in the air within 10 meters, as long as you remain in Trespassing Mode, showing the paths recently traveled by survivors for 20 seconds. Base agony trail duration, 8 seconds. Desolate Hope activations create an audio cue for survivor. What is the point of Desolate Hope? It states that it reveals agony trails, or essentially it shows where a survivor went within 10 meters as long as you remain in Trespasser Mode. Scratch marks last for 10 seconds. This trail lasts for 8 seconds. So essentially, instead of having fading scratch marks, you're just going to have scratch marks that are just there. Same brightness, same everything, the entirety of the way for 8 seconds. And then the 9 and 10 seconds, they're just going to fade away. What's the point in having these trails and all of this? Why not just make it a special ability that makes scratch marks stay at their brightest effect for 8 seconds and then fade out the last 2 seconds? It'll do the same thing. So I'm not really understanding the Desolate Hope and all of that, and what you're hoping to accomplish. And also, I'm not understanding how it can show a path recently traveled by survivors for 20 seconds if the trail only lasts for 8 seconds. I'm misunderstanding something. You gotta be within 10 meters of that trail. The trail duration lasts for 8 seconds. But you can see the trail the survivors ran for 20 seconds. Also, there's a queue for that particular trail. So my first initial thoughts is if they hear that audio cue that you're using your desolate trails, if they just stop running where they are and crouch for a split second or two and then continue running again, you'll be able to track them for the first 20 seconds to that trail, that first little trail that they ran to. And then it would end because it only says it tracks, I guess Desolate Hope lasts for 20 seconds. Maybe that's what it's saying. Hang on. Press the active to reveal agony trails near 10 meters as long as you remain in trespassing, showing the paths recently traveled by survivors for 20 seconds. Base agony trail duration 8 seconds. So it's either going to show the trail for 20 seconds, which is conflicting with the 8 seconds. And the easiest way to get rid of that is to just stop running for a second and then rerun again, because it'll only follow the one trail. Or it's the opposite, and I'm back to square one. Like, you could just make scratch marks just stay their brightest for 8 seconds and then fade out at 9 and 10. Or make them stay their brightest for 8 seconds and then disappear faster. Either or, it don't matter. I mean, there are perks for that, but, just trying to make heads or tails. This particular killer, I mean, is simple. You use your invisibility to get close to a survivor. You come out of your particular mode, and then you immediately rush, taking a survivor down. Obviously, sneaking up and ambushing is the way to go because, I mean, it only takes 1.5 seconds to come out of that. Literally. Done. 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 And you're already rushing. The survivor's not going to have enough time to react and try to get out of the way. When it happens, it happens. Which is why I would suggest making an additional charge. So after you come out of your stealth mode, you have to charge up a particular attack and then release it. Or incorporate that in some other shape or form to make it more skill-based, as opposed to you just walking up to a survivor coming out of stealth and then clapping them cheeks. Or you don't even have to walk up to a survivor. You just have to have a survivor in your sight. I mean, 1.5 seconds, you come out of that shit almost instantly. And you're able to just lunge after that. It is OP as fuck. um... Lunge movement speed increased by 7.5%. Yeah, you have add-ons and everything like that increases your lunge speed, probably add-ons that makes it so you come out of that stuff quicker, which gives you, dying. So super lunges, things like that are super powerful and just immediately clap survivors should be gated behind add-ons. Your perk set doesn't help your particular killer at all, though. Which makes me I don't understand. I understand the last perk, you can just dash into the damn generator, and it would pop the generator and lock the generator. I understand the last perk, but the first two aren't really that good. Unless you have a specific add-on, which I'm not going to go over, that shows your aura to other survivors. I don't see your first two perks assisting this killer. At the end of the day, your killer is an ambush killer. And after that, if the ambush doesn't work, you're essentially running behind somebody like a hillbilly trying to complete their challenges. You're phasing in and out, emerging and unemerging, etc., trying to get these one hit downs. And that's what's going to happen this entirety of the chase. Because it's not even worth mouse warning them unless, there's a cooldown or some shit like that if you miss. So, I mean, if there's no cooldown, you literally just emerge, attack, disappear. Emerge, attack, disappear. Emerge, attack, disappear. Emerge, attack, disappear. And you just do that over and over and over till you get these downs. Same as with a hillbilly or a Bubba with a chainsaw. You just keep at it till you finally get somebody. That's going to be majority of the playstyle. If a survivor's going towards a window or towards a door or something, you try and cut them off that way, like a demo does. Or you do with like Huntress's hatchets or the twins, the short guy that I can't remember his name forever. You would do something like that with the leaping version of that, or lunging version, we say. But it doesn't make sense to really mouse one. Especially with an ability with no cooldown that you can just keep unleashing over and over and over. I'm not going to show any of the particular gameplay. Or anything like that. But I will show Michael Apton's perks. We got Hollow Sensation. When injured, you gain a 3% haste status effect and further increases by an additional 0.5 for each negative status effect that you have. Or you can just run Overcome and just continue that speed. 3% is very, very, very low. As I've went over before, survivors run at 4 meters per second. 10% would be 0.4. 5% is 0.2. So 3% would be somewhere between 4 and 0.2. So you're looking at probably 0.1 something and some change. Moving at 4.1, I mean, is significant in some, cases. But generally, it's not going to be much. 2, on top of Hollow Sensation, you need to make it an exhaustion, or it can't be activated when the exhausted status effect is in play. Or make it deactivate whenever, well, no, because it activates when you're injured. So I don't know how you're going to implement that. Make it the reverse and make it while you're healthy. You have the haste, and when you're injured, you lose the haste. But definitely make it to where it doesn't stock with the exhausted status effect. Because you literally just run Sprint Burst or Dead Hard or some other shit. And, I mean, Curse status effect is very often you're going to have. So, the Curse is already going to stack you up to 8%. And then as long as you stay exhausted, that's another 5% on top. So that's 10% plus the 3% from base. That's 13%. Now we're over 0.4 and we're at 0.4 and some change. So as long as that killer is using any type of curse effect, which is part of the meta, perks, ruin, things like that, and you keep yourself at the exhausted status effect, you're going to be faster than any ranged killer. They're not going to be able to touch you. You're going to outrun them. You're going to outjuke them. You're going to outdo everything. Which isn't a good balance for the actual game. It's an issue. Why haste is a very fickle thing to try to go around. And when you get haste, it's always just temporary burst. that don't last too terribly long, and it's limited in how much you can go. You should never be faster than the killer with an indefinite amount of haste. Yes, I mean, we all know that's bullshit. And as soon as you become unexhausted, you have dead hard back. So I mean, it's like, hey, or if you're running like sprint burst, for example, that's just speed on speed on speed. It's not a good idea to have a perk like that, especially for a survivor. Hoping I could catch the rest of that, but I guess not. Alright, well, let me plop this back up. Alright, first perk. Moving on. The exposure to the life and death makes feeling out of it somehow less discomforting. After being unhooking yourself or fully recovering from the dying state, moving on activates for 10 seconds. While active, you don't leave scratch marks from running. Don't create loud noise notifications for the killer from rushed actions. It's not autodidact. There's already a perk that essentially does this. You also have Guardian, and there's another perk that I can't think of right now that does the same thing. Guardian, height, scratch marks also gives you a speed boost when you unhook somebody. So, I mean, the scratch marks from running is already taken care of. You would get speed, and quick and quiet covers loud noise notifications. So, but there's also another perk that I can't think of right now that essentially already covers this that you don't necessarily need there. So I'd have to say no, unfortunately. Get the next perk. That's Hollow Sensation. Let me move on to the next perk. Witness the Truth. Put this down. Witness the truth. Whenever another survivor is injured by a non-basic attack, you see the killer's aura for 4 seconds and gain a token up to a maximum of 5 tokens. Whenever you are put into the dying state, you consume all of your tokens and reveal the killer's aura for 2 seconds to all survivors for each token lost this way. I've already done this particular concept recently, but I'm going to go over it again. I mean, this is just kind of inherently bad. I'm going to say the same thing that I said before when I went over this. Empathy. Empathy, empathy, empathy. Empathy lets you know where the killer is and everything that's going on by means of you seeing every survivor that's within like 124 meter, which is essentially the entire map. In most cases, most maps. Seeing the injured survivor's aura. And that never goes away as long as they're injured. If a survivor is being chased and they get injured, you'll be able to see where that survivor's running, whether they're throwing pallets, whether they're hiding, whether, they're looping, doing whatever it is they're doing. You'll be able to get the same location of killer and things like that. And it is constant. That is worth more than just a measly 4 seconds and seeing the killer's aura. And then when you go down, let's say you have a maximum of 5 tokens, everybody's being able to see the killer's aura for 10 seconds. 10 seconds after you going down into the dying state, everybody knows where the killer is. He's standing over you about to pick your ass up and take you to a hook. It's irrelevant to have that information in that particular time. Oh, my teammate went down. Oh, he's getting picked up. Oh, he's getting taken to a hook. Now he's getting hooked. Perk, for the most part, is useless in that particular time. It would be different. It was like the perk that already came out when you unhook, your particular teammate. You can see the killer's, which is Guardian, by the way, still. You can see the killer's aura after you get the unhook. That makes sense. That lets you know if you have time to heal or whether you both need the GTFO because that killer's coming back to get them cheeks. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense. And it gives them a speed boost so they're not going to get tunneled and rehooked. And gives you aura reading to make the decision on if the killer is going directly towards them, whether you want to intercept or whether you just want to let it happen and they're going to get clapped again for the second time. It's more important then than as soon as you get knocked down. What's the killer doing the next 10 seconds? Doesn't matter. It's going to take, what? Well, depending on the perks you're running, 16 to 32 seconds for them to even recover or you to pick them up out of the dying state. So why does it care where the killer is? The 10 seconds after that, you know? You know where the killer is. Again, empathy still gives you greater aura reading and all of that. I said this the first time this was brought up. I just find it interesting. Give me a moment. I'm going to skim through this video and I'm going to see how things go. Can't show it. Sounds muted. Can't show it. I'm actually going to mute my mic just in case it decides it wants to leak through. I'll just be right back. I'll be back in a moment. All right. Here's picture one of him standard. He's holding an axe in his hand. I'm going to play a little bit of this so you can hear the sound he makes as he walks. Listen carefully. When I said earlier about, it doesn't matter having the undetectable status effect because you're loud as fuck when you're walking, it's going to be loud like Nemesis. It has a slight, like, squeaky sound, but you can also hear the tung, 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 tung as he's moving. So again, my point still stays. Even if you're undetectable, they're still going to be able to hear you approaching. So the undetectable status effect doesn't really work here. And if you're in Trespasser mode, I mean, you're going to have a phantom tear radius of 40 meters. They're going to know you're nearby. But if they're not, looking out for you, it's not going to matter because you have that ambush attack. You're not trying to be stealthy at that point and kind of sneak up on them. You're trying to just get as close as you can to them so you can hit them with the 1-2, This is the Trespasser mode. As you can see, it's kind of glitchy. We'll play a little bit of that. Well, that's the survivor. Again, a little bit farther back. Regular. Merges like that. And that's what they look like. This a lunge attack. So like that. That's the lunge attack that I'm talking about. Did you see how fast a survivor that's caught off guard got clapped? That's not a lot of time to adjust. I'm going to show it to you one more time. Watch how fast he emerges and then is able to get that attack out. Look how fast. It's instantaneous. Bang. That's the problem that I have. If survivors are working on generators or doing things like that, you walk around the corner like he did, you yell, and then you clap that survivor. They don't have time to make it clean through a window. Pallets, if they're on pallet side, they might be fine, but if they're not on pallet side, they're going down. If a survivor's in an area that ain't just completely open to where they can see you approaching, they're going down. The gap between you coming out of your power and doing that attack is too small. You see how fast he moved after that. I'm going to show it to you one more time. I want you to see how fast he comes out and how fast he goes from where he was all the way to dashing to down in that survivor. Pay explicit attention. Watch how fast this is. That survivor stood no chance. And I know people are like, oh, you can 360 or you can do all kinds of other tech to avoid that. The thing about it is you really can't because it's that fast. If you're in the middle of turning a 360 and they turn and then activate their attack, you're not going to have time to dodge. It's instantaneous. Instantaneous. Bam. On them. You can't control it. Like after it's set, it's set. So you have a small chance of getting around it, but it reacts so fast. It's not like, Nurse. She teleports to you and then hits, which gives you the option to 360 her. No, it's from he shows himself, does his little, and then woof, he's there. Like it almost teleports. He's so fast that it's just essentially instant transmission. Bing, bing, bam. It's too fast. It's way too fast. And then having add-ons that, that'll decrease the amount of time it takes to emerge or increase lunge time or something like that. It makes that way too OP. This is faster than a chainsaw. I thought it was going to be similar, but no, this is even faster than chainsaws. Chainsaws, they have to get up next to you and they have to kind of zone you out. They ran. Now, this is a pseudo invisible killer that can just walk around the corner and then immediately clap your cheeks like that, like it's nothing. And you bet your sweet bippy when you get people that main this particular killer and things like that, it's going to be a bad experience. This Springtrap version has the ability to become #1 killer in Dead by Daylight. That's how strong and stupid that this is. Here's another look at the invisibility. You're not super invisible. I hate motion blur. You're not like super invisible because you can see, this is just the in-game collapse and all the other, decals and stuff on him. But, you can still see him, but he can still catch you off guard fairly easy. These are images of the map. Looks like you have an outside and an inside. It's the regular pizzeria, and then it has the outside from one of the other games that have come out. I know exactly which game this is after looking at the forest and that parking lot too, which one it comes from. Then it has an outside area with trees and all of that. Things like that. Now, there's your chase music. He just got clapped. And I'm not gonna show the Mori. It starts off looking like that. It looks like he's about to just pop his head. And then there's all of their information because, well, credits. We will show credits on stream. Says, here's all the people involved. And if you want to make your own concept come to life, these are the group of people that you can get a hold of. And they might be able to make something for you. Obviously, it ain't going to be cheap, but I mean, if you really want your creation to come to life and be able to play it in Dead by Daylight, or at least in style of Dead by Daylight, I don't know if it's like a land lobby or if they're just copying a map that they made in Unity and just ported everything in. Not sure. But if you do want to be able to play your particular killer and all of that, there's something that you can look at. I wish I had, a couple of million subscribers and all of that. That I could hire all of these people on and I could literally have them create people's ideas and we can test them and see if they're actually worth, implementing. And then eventually, get, people's permissions and all of that and just include one just big ass download pack that people can pay for and download that has a bunch of creations in it that you can just run and play with your friends on Unity Engine or some shit and just have fun times. Obviously, we're gonna have to take off the licensed content. We're gonna have to name it other shit and give it other different themes and everything like that. Like this ain't gonna be Springtrap. It's gonna be like the Killer Teddy Bear or some shit, and it's gonna be the Killer Bunny, and it's gonna have to be reskinned a little bit. But I mean, you know what I'm saying. Not bad. I mean, again, this is the equivalence of what we used to say in the automotive industry is it's a polished turd. It looks good. It's got people in it. It's got credits. It's got gameplay. I mean, as you can see, the little bit that I showed you, everything's implemented in the game. The details and all of that off of the Springtrap looks amazing and everything else, except for, like I said, it's kind of a polished turd because the actual perks that Springtrap has are kind of lackluster and weak. The add-ons that he has support his OP power. I understand the lore and everything that he comes from and etc. etc. However, if you think about keeping it a fair cat and mouse game, Dead by Daylight wise, something needs to be changed in order to make it, competitive. You've seen how quick he was able to come out of his power and then immediately clap the cheeks of that survivor. One, to my knowledge, Springtrap hasn't ever had the ability to go invisible. I'm just going to throw that out there. So I kind of don't even understand where that came from unless I'm missing some sort of Five Nights at Freddy where he can turn invisible. Because even in Security Breach, it's just kind of old school Springtrap and the secret ending and all that you can get, where he tries to possess Reddy or Rockstar Freddy. I said Reddy. That's funny. He was very slow on everything that he did. On the other games, where he was crawling through vents or coming up to you or things like that, for the most part, he's always been, slow. He's never been like this super fast bolter or anything like that to just, completely end you. This is canon Nights at Freddy's. So, again, it's kind of a type of situation if you want to go by lore and all of that. Um, I mean, it's Springtrap. What more can you say? It's Springtrap. Everybody wants to see him incorporated into the game, but nobody really knows how to design Springtrap and to make it usable. You can't have your concept get carried by its name alone. You have to incorporate things that makes it worthwhile to play. Having an OP power and then the rest of the concept of Springtrap being bad, it's not very savvy. It's not good. Not good at all. Yeah, like I said, at the end of the day, he's a semi stealth mouse one killer with a charge. And like I said, if you're chasing a survivor, you're not going to want to mouse one that survivor. You're going to want to try to get the Phantom Assault. And bam, get them. So please add in a cooldown between uses or a cooldown for missing the attack or something like that. Like, make it more skill based, make it more competitive, make it not easy to where you can walk up to somebody, go roar, and then slap them down. Like, please do something to up the skill to play this Springtrap killer. That's about all I have to say. I mean, out of everything, the visuals, designs, and all of that, they're good. They're not like Sadako good, but I would give it, a B plus, maybe A minus. I didn't look at the entirety of the map and all of that and see how, good everything looked and all of that. But I'd say like a B plus, A minus sounds about right. Visuals and the project being put together and all of that. But the actual core of everything, I would give it about a C. It's about average as anybody else's that posts things in words on the forum. If I took out everything that he said word wise and slapped it on a forum page, it would do just as well as any other thing that's on the forum right now. If anything, I might even give it a D plus or a C minus, seeing it on paper. But I'm gonna go with a C when it comes to design, the core aspects of the project, and we'll give it about a B plus, A minus maybe if I actually had time to look at the entire map and all of that when it comes to the visuals and things like that. Again, I can't see this model up close. I can't see whether or not it's glitchy or if things ain't working as planned or if something else is broken or buggy because I can't play it and test it out for myself. So this is just going off of what I can see. This is why I'm more apt to give it a B, B plus than an A because it's not accessible. And from what I'm seeing, just what I'm going off of. So if I had to give it a grade, like a definite grade, implementation, C, visuals, designs, and all of that, I would give it a B. That's if there's no pluses, minuses, or anything like that. So C, then B. And I would leave it at that. Visuals can be heavily improved. The map and all of that, could probably be improved. I'm not looking at the map. I don't know where gen spawns are. Things like that. Like, there's just not enough information to give you a detailed analysis on that. But that's not what I'm going after, is that. I figured I would just throw this in here for like a Dead by Daylight review, and that'll be it for the day. So thanks anybody that watches this. please feel free to go in and check it out. It's literally like an 8 minute and 37 second thing as they showcase it and go over it. Please tell me what you think. Leave a comment or something for them, letting them know if you like it or not and all of that. Hell, leave a comment on mine too. If you disagree with everything I say, I would love to see your rating, your reasonings, and shit like that on my video. And tell me why you either agree or disagree with whatever I'm saying. Maybe you went through and looked at the add-ons that I didn't, and you said, well, it balances out with the add-ons or something like that. I don't know. Or you could say, damn, Q, you're right on the money, and the add-ons, did what you said they did. Who knows? Or it could be some fee option shit that's right out in left field, and you're going to tell me something that blows my fucking mind. I don't know. Only thing I do know is that if you do elect to watch the video and stay silent and forever hold your peace, keep in mind that you're not giving anybody any type of feedback. You're not helping me. You're not helping him, them, his group. You're not helping me. You're not helping this group. And you're not helping yourself staying quiet. So if you have something to say, that's what the comment sections are for. It might not always be looked at, especially if you got a YouTuber or something like that that has like 3 million subscribers. Your comment might not be, looked at, or it's going to be the same, a duplicate comment of what 100 other thousand people say. Sometimes liking a comment and making somebody's original statement more popular than commenting under that statement, the difference is that you don't agree with that person, is a lot more powerful than, copying a comment that's said 1,000 times. Other ways to get your opinion through. Like when it comes to voting, I've said this before. When it comes to voting and they say every vote counts, they're not necessarily talking about your particular individual vote. They're talking about the group that you belong in counts. The people that abstain from voting and don't vote at all. Like I said, if there's 35,000 people that don't vote at all, that's part of your particular group, and all of you vote, then there's more power. Each individual vote counts and the aspect as a group. But if none of you 35,000 people do anything, then you're leaving it to the people that always go out and vote a particular way because maybe their family's Democratic or Republican or the third party or something like that. So, since their fathers was that, they vote that way. They have no idea what the fuck politics are. They just know that their family is a Republican family, so they vote Republican. Your vote can counteract one of those unfair, biased votes. The 35 people go and cast a vote on whoever the fuck they think is the best candidate, counters biased votes. And you can actually raise, any individual side higher. And at the end of the day, it makes sense that they say every vote counts, because in essence, it does count. Because if you're not voting, then there's probably somebody else that's like you that has reasons to why they're not voting. But my main thing is if you don't vote or if you don't try and change the things around you, you have no right to complain about any type of situation or anything like that that you find yourself in. If you don't vote, then don't open your fucking mouth when it comes to issues about the country and things like that. And question the leaderships and all of that. Because I know cowards that don't vote when something happens, they want to open their mouth. Oh, well, Biden's doing some dumb shit again. He's an idiot. I don't know how he got in office. Like, he got in the office because your dumbass didn't vote. Here you are complaining about a situation that you never tried to change. Guess what that makes you? Fucking coward, goddamn scumbag. You are the scourge of the earth. You are useless in essence and being by not trying to change the situation that you're complaining about. If your friends and all of that are into drugs and you know they're hardcore smokers and they're in your car and you get pulled over and all of you go to jail for possession of marijuana and it ends up ruining your life, guess what? You are an accomplice. You didn't try to change any type of situation and all that. You have no right to get mad at the friend who you know's packing drug paraphernalia and drugs themselves. You have no right. You knew it was in them. You knew it was on them. What, you expect them to say, oh, yeah, man, all of this shit's mine. Lock me up for the next couple of years. And just, accept that. Why? When it's your car, they can slide the shit under your fucking seat, say that that shit's yours, and when you fight it, all of you can go to jail. Guess what? You better hope you've never touched that shit or never did anything, and you better hope that the cops are actually smart enough to fingerprint test that shit as well. Because most times when you argue about that shit, the cops don't do that shit. They pick that shit up with their nasty ass hands. They shove that shit into a fucking bag and then they hold that evidence up at court. They don't even fingerprint test that shit. Why? Because the more people that they can convict, the better. That's the more money that they're going to have. So why would they take the time to do, a proper, accurate job, fingerprint test that shit and find out who it belongs to? Especially if you're not a smoker or druggie or anything like that. And then whoever's fingerprints on it get in trouble. Why do that when they can just convict all three of you with a drug paraphernalia charge and keep you guys there for a limited amount of time or give you probation and make more money off your asses because you're not even there and paying money off of it? That you find out very quickly who your friends are or not when shit hits the fan. People that know they're going to lose years off their lives or their lives in jeopardy. You'll find out if they're going to just sit there and be like, take the heat for it, or whether they're going to fuck you over to try and save themselves for a future date when this shit inevitably happens again and they finally get caught for it. It's different if you're in love and it's your girl or something like that and she gets caught and you take the fall for her, which happens a lot, especially around here, and the guys are fucking dumbasses. Yeah, man, that's my girl. That shit's mine, man. No, man, she has nothing to do with this. It's mine. Brother, she's a drug addict. You know what she's gonna do? They're gonna take her fucking drugs. They're gonna take her pipe. They're gonna take everything from her. They're gonna lock your stupid ass up. And you know what she's gonna do? She's gonna go back to her supplier. She's gonna get more, and she's gonna continue to live her life. And while you're wasting away in jail, or if you get probation or parole or all of that, in the meantime, she's gonna be out getting drugs, getting high, and fucking, and doing all the regular shit that she has done every day and beyond. When you get put back into the rotation again, maybe she'll go back and stay with you again. If she ain't got another honey she's squeezing up on, you know what I'm saying? Self sacrifice is good in some situations, but if you're covering for somebody that is going to fall back into the same habits and potentially get somebody else in trouble down the line, you're a fucking idiot. Why? Oh, well, I love her, man. And if you loved her, you'd let her ass go to fucking jail and get that rehabilitation and shit. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're hitting the shit too, then both of y'all are fucking idiots. And I guess it really don't matter who goes to jail because it's both of yours. But if you ain't in that business and you take the fall for somebody, you're a fucking idiot. If it's partially yours, partially hers, then I mean, yeah, it kind of makes sense for one of you to take the fall. Because if you both say that it's not yours, you're both going to jail. At that point, it's do one of you take the fall or do both of you take the fall? Which generally falls down to who the fuck owns the vehicle and where they find it. Guns is simple. Whoever the fuck registered that shit in their names, responsible unless somebody else who has the gun in their possession commits a crime with it. So if a gun kills somebody and the gun's just found laid out somewhere, whoever the fuck it's registered to is going to get called in and they're going to say, how did they get a hold of your shit? And where were you on this night? You ain't got an alibi. You fucked. If you left that shit to where it was readily accessible, you're fucked. Now, if they catch the motherfucker who stole from you and started shooting motherfuckers up and shit, or you have a damn good alibi, you can prove everything that you've done exactly without any kind of doubt, then it's kind of eh. I personally think if the weapon was registered to you, you should be responsible for its use. It's different if somebody breaks into your house and steals it from you. But I mean, it's the same as with a car, If somebody breaks into your fucking car, punches a window out, hot wires that shit, and takes off with it, you call the cops, it's reported stolen, and that goes down different avenues. Same as if somebody jumps through your fucking window, like busts a window open, goes in, busts into your safe and all of that, which they would have to find unless they know you, takes the weapon, then goes and murders somebody. It's different. But if your front door is open, you come in, somebody walks in, they know exactly where your gun safe is, they walk over to your safe, it's unlocked, or you have your weapons strewn about all over the house and shit, and they walk in, they see a gun, they pick that shit up, they walk over to the ex-girlfriend's house or some shit or whatever, and they shoot her. I think the person that owns the weapon should be responsible for that, not the gun company. Not any of the other bullshit. The person who stole the gun should be responsible, and the person who didn't secure their firearm should be responsible for that shit. Same as with school shootings and all of that. If you have your shit readily accessible by your children, you should go to jail. If somebody comes in and they see that your child can get access to your weapon, they should have a number that you can call, and that person should receive a fine. That's simple. Fine the hell out of them. First time, you know, give them kind of like a warning, fine them like $100. Second time, if it happens again, $1,000. Third time it happens, 1250, 1,500, $2,000. Eventually, guess what? They're gonna start securing their fucking firearms. And anybody that doesn't have secure firearms should be fined. Simple as that. I've talked to people who were like, yeah, I love my son knows exactly the combination to my gun safe. They know the combination, they know how to use it, they know how to shoot. If anybody breaks in, they know exactly what to do. Why are you teaching your son to take another human's life? Why are you taking them out and shooting and showing them the ropes on how to do violence on another human being? That's how school shootings and shit like that happen. Motherfucker walks in with a goddamn AR that they've learned how to use, they were taught how to use. Some motherfucker pushed them over the edge because they aren't mentally, their mental capacity isn't as high as an adult. They can't handle as much shit as an adult can do. They were pushed over their capacity. So they decided they're going to take that shit in, use all of that training that you gave them, and they're going to fucking slaughter everybody that's at that school. What's the parent going to do? They're going to say, I don't understand what happened. They were such a good kid, all of this other stuff. They never showed any symptoms of it. They just snapped one day, grabbed that shit, took it to wherever the hell they were going, and just started blaming people up. Who the fuck taught them how to do that shit? I mean, yeah, you can do a YouTube video and learn how to do this shit. You can play, hell, video games nowadays teach you how to do that shit. I mean, you can learn fucking weapon operation from everywhere. But nobody teaches the dangers of weapon. You play a video game, you shoot somebody, there is no connection to you taking another human being's life. And if you play first person shooters or any games like that where it happens, and you get a gun in your hand and you're doing the same shit that you've done in a video game, and you don't feel that remorse or anything, generally not till they pull the trigger and they actually feel and actually understand what they've done. Some children still don't go through them. They think it's just, another thing that's happened in a video game. They don't put the two and two together. They kill somebody. They get taken away. They don't understand. This person was a bad guy like in the video game and you deleted them. They'll respawn later. They ain't respawning, Johnny. They ain't respawning. That's the end of it. But I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. These young ass kids that are taught how to fire weapons and shit like that. And if you're going to teach your son how to fire a weapon and how to defend all the defense and shit like that, don't leave a weapon in their sight. Teach them the opposite side of that shit. If somebody breaks into your fucking house, tell your child to hide or get the fuck out of the house as quick as possible or go to the neighbor's house or some shit. Don't tell your son to grab a weapon and start firing. Your son could have a fucking nightmare. You could come in with your buddies drunk one day or some shit. Son don't even know, grabs weapon, shoots your stupid ass. Because he don't know who the fuck it is or anything like that. He's panicking and had a nightmare or some shit. Fucking shot everybody in that bitch. School bully, shot his ass. Teacher says something to him he don't like, shot their ass. About instead of teaching your child how to shoot, how about you teach him the morals and things and the self-control and temperance and shit that goes along with that. Teach them about the power that they're going to have in their hands and how to properly use that power. And teach them when it comes to a fight or flight response that you shouldn't go for that weapon unless it's absolutely necessary. Let the police, let other adults and shit like that take care of it. Don't teach them to play fucking hero and shit like that. Because let's say they do go into the weapon safe, grab a weapon, and they shoot the robbers. Let's say they even save your life as a parent. You're about to get shot in the head. They come in and they exterminate the guy about to end your life. When all of that hits, your child's going to be fucked up. They're a kid. They're in that, and period where they're learning everything, dealing with things, etc., etc. And you've made your child a murderer, and they're going to have to live the rest of their life knowing that they're a murderer. Some children completely break and they become despondent. It's bad, but it's more of a morale break. With therapy, they can be brought back, they can be made to go over it. The shit that's scary is the child that thinks that that shit's cool and they brag to their friends and all of that because, the police come and they see that it's self-defense and shit like that and the kid gets off scot-free. That's the scared. That's the time you want to be scared when you're somebody's hard pressing your child and your kid's like, I've already killed a man. You fuck with me, motherfucker. I'll kill you too. That's when you should start worrying because that has psychologically fucked up your child. They might seem fine, they are not fine. They're threatening to take more lives, things like that. And it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse and worse. that moral trigger that people have in their brains that stops them from doing crazy shit. Once that shit's pulled or gone, you have almost an unlimited amount of ability on how much of a monster you can become. But those are the scary motherfuckers. Hey man, you don't chill the fuck out, I'm gonna pop you in the fucking head with this pistol type shit. Those are the type of situations and the type of children that you need to be terrified with, that are confident and brag about killing somebody. That's the type of psychological, psychopath or sociopath or some shit type of kid that needs to be taken off the streets and put in hardcore ass therapy. Because they feel no morals or anything like that. They took another human being's life and they're completely fine with it. So they think. Then you have the opposite side of that, where the child thinks they're protecting the parent or some shit. The cops come in, they go to arrest the parent for doing something stupid, and the child shoots the cop, spends the rest of his time, in jail and all of that, not even understanding what's going on. Only thing he knows is his father said, if I'm ever attacked, you do this. So the child does what he's taught, and then he gets punished for it, spends the rest of his life in prison, or at least a significant part, to juvie, then from juvie, straight to prison. And trial as an adult, fucking life gone before it even started. Or death sentence, worst case, if they don't feel like going through that whole process. Straight up gone. Before you even had a time to live life and see what it had to offer. You're gone. Gone. Done. You're done, son. It's fucked up, right? All because of an irresponsible parent. Knives, guns, weapons in general. Why are you letting your children use them before they are ready? If they can't formulate an opinion on their own about things, what makes you think they're going to be able to formulate opinion when under stress and things are actually happening around them? No. People develop at different rates. Some people can handle things earlier than other people. But the bottom line is it takes time for your body to fully develop. Until your body's fully developed, until you get to that maturity to where you can handle that shit, think logically, things like that, you develop the proper morals and the understanding of the power and the ability and responsibilities that you have. You shouldn't be put in that particular position. It's like kids getting manager positions. They generally go buck wild until they get fired. Some are able to handle it and they become very good managers as kids. Some become walked over managers, and the adults basically do whatever the fuck they want to do because it's a fucking kid and they know they can push past it. Some kids, again, can't handle that type of responsibility. They don't know what they're doing, and they end up failing in the end. Once you become a manager, even if you've been there for a couple of years and you slowly start to hang on, eventually there's going to be a higher calling throughout your life. While you're still trying to get, acclimated to a manager and all of this other shit, what if somebody else gets hired on that has better management, skills and things like that? They're going to say, hey, Johnny, you did a good job. However, this person's taking over your job. That's a fucking kid. Nobody's going to take you serious. You ain't got 25 years as a manager in a specific position that this guy has that they hired as a replacement. And what they do to children is they say, well, we'll just make you an assistant manager. Yeah, you'll just assist on helping this particular manager out and all of that. And they give you some bullshit ass made up role to try and make you happy. Or they wait till you make a mistake and then they fire your ass right then and there. Because at the end of the day, again, businesses are there for money. It's all about that money. So if you don't want to play ball, they'll just get rid of you. Any mistakes, they'll get rid of you. If you're not keeping up a specific quota, they'll get rid of you. Just like that. And they'll replace you with somebody that can keep up with the ever increasing demands. I mean, that's America. That is America. Most things I talk about are specific to America, by the way. Human psychology might have the same base, but psychology does differ between areas that you go to. A funny example that I used to use in a particular lecture is some people think fucking their cousins and sisters and moms and all that shit, they actually think that that shit is okay. Other places, even fucking their cousins, disgusting. You will be ostracized from their society. Let somebody know that you banged their cousin. You will be moving, or you will be punished or kicked out or just treated like absolute dog shit. They'll say, oh, look, he's a fucking sister fucker or cousin fucker. Everybody will look at you with disdain. People won't want to help you when you're in trouble, things like that. They'll just keep moving on, shaking their head. Other places, you say, fuck my cousin, and they say, I'm alright with that. You still seem like a cool dude. I can look past that. Or they say, hey, I did too. And it goes on with that. That's just kind of a funny example. It's true, but it's just a funny example. If you are that type of person, again, it matters about where you go. There's nothing saying that it's right. There's nothing saying that it's wrong. I mean, I guess there's laws and shit like that, but I mean, laws are humans to keep other humans under control. If you go by natural animal instinct, you know, the law of the world itself that trumps human law, you can walk up and fuck whatever the fuck you want. That's just natural selection. If you're the biggest and baddest fucking gorilla in the fucking forest, you get all the bitches. You just walk up and you mount. If they don't want it, they'll knock you off and walk away from you. If they don't care, they'll just stand there and take it and then they'll move on. You know, later down the road, they'll have a baby and there goes that. The animal instincts kick in. You take care of the baby and all of that, unless your species is a different type of species. And then everything goes from there. Herds and packs are formed with particular picture people, etc., groups of animals. Differences when it comes to natural selection and the biggest and the baddest and mating and shit like that. And there's animals that go into heat a specific time of the year. When they're ready for it, they're ready for it. Others don't. Human laws are made by humans for humans. Some are made so one family can't maintain power, like monarchs and things like that. That's one of the main reasons why laws like that came to fruition. Monopoly laws, things like that. They don't want you only sleeping with people in your own family line when you're a king or something like that because your family holds the power. If we say, hey, none of you motherfuckers can sleep together unless it's your second cousin or whatever the fuck is legalized is now. First cousin, second cousin, once removed, or whatever the fuck it is legally. That forces you to spread out your bloodline and eventually, well, I don't say taint it, but change it to other different families and it eventually spreads throughout an entire area. which what we have nowadays. If you've lived in an area for a long time and your family's been in the same area for like 200 years or some shit like that, you've always just been there. You're probably living with your cousins and distance relatives and shit like that. Weird to think about. Yes, that girl that you were sleeping with in high school. Well, if your families have been there for a long time, they've probably intermingled and you're probably related. Shit like that happens. Hmm. So, I mean, it's best not to think about things like that, but I mean, they happen. They happen every day. That soulmate that you thought you met up with, where you guys just belonged together. You went to school together, she was your high school honey and all of that other shit. You guys kind of look alike, you carry the same genes, you got along just fine and all of that. You have good, likes, things, it's perfect soulmate. Probably your family, some way, shape, and form. Probably your cousin, to be more specific. The person you married, it's probably your cousin. So just keep that in mind. Either way, I'm done rambling now. I'm up to about 2 hours. I got shit. Well, I was supposed to be doing shit beforehand, but oh well, it is what it is. Like I said, as always, supplement your lifestyle, and I'll see you next time.